Ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce myself. My name is Lieutenant Leroy Laceration, and I'm going to be taking you through some of the more advanced safety topics that'll help you avoid the kind of injuries that you see depicted here between me and Sergeant Von Tripp. Now, before we get into that, we've been asked by the EAA Legal Department to cover some very important rules that these gentlemen have worked intensively on over many, many years. Now, here's the result of their research, and we've put them together into about 3 really comprehensive rules. Here we go. First one. If you see fire, yell fire. That's the first rule. You'd think that was simple, but it took a lot of money out of $400,000 on this project. Rule number 2, if you see smoke, put out your cigarette because there is absolutely no smoking anywhere on the AirVenture grounds. Number 3, and the final one, and this is one I really like. If someone falls off the tram, in the old days, it was simple. You would either yell, "Man overboard," or "Woman overboard." Well, with today's society, and you want to be correct about everything in our new culture, you'd probably be safest if you just simply say, "Someone overboard." And that covers it all. You won't hurt anybody's feelings, no matter what they are. So there you have it. By now, I'm sure you realize that whenever I say seriously, I'm probably joking, you guys. Seriously. Okay, let's get started. I want to talk to you guys about some really important safety issues that'll help you as you stroll around the various zones in the Warbirds compound and explore all the wonderful attractions we have here. The first thing I want you to protect are your eyes. Keep both eyes wide open. Wink, wink, wink. I can't blink with my right eye, sorry. You have to watch out for these devices that bristle off almost every airplane. And they have a funny name, I think it's French, but it's spelled P-I-T-O-T. Now, I pronounced that pitot for many years, and a lot of people laughed at me. A lot of my flying buddies never told me the real way to say it. They just got a great deal of merriment and pleasure out of me mispronouncing it. It ain't pronounced like it's spelled. You would think it would be pie-tot or pea-tote. It's not. I finally got 2 words. A buddy of mine told me the way you pronounce it, use these 2 words. Pea-toe. Pea-toe. You can't miss. Pedo tube. Now that pedo represents another hazard for the gentleman, but that's a whole different problem. Pedo tubes are devices that collect air pressure from the front of the airplane. It runs through the conduit up into the cockpit, and it powers the airspeed gauge, which tells the pilot how fast he's going through the air. These devices do not work well at all if they are clogged with skin or ocular debris. So please do not run into these pitot tubes. And Tim Gillian, who covers the 3rd and final segment of this safety briefing, is going to talk to you about other vent tubes and pipes and what have you that bristle off these planes that you have to be aware of also. Now, let's focus on the lower anatomy, your feet. Know at all times where your feet are and are going. And the reason being, along in random areas of the flight line, my friends, are stranded cables at ground level anchored there to provide a base for aircraft to run their tie downs to keep them from moving in high winds. These cables are right at foot level, at ground level. So they represent a substantial hazard when you, if you're not paying attention to what you're doing. So if you don't want to simulate being a tail hook on a landing aircraft carrier airplane, watch your feet so you don't end up on the crutches like me. Thank you. That's phase 1. Now, let me cover prop wash. Now, prop wash is not a high-strength detergent used to clean propellers. It is the gale force blast of wind that comes from behind a moving propeller on an aircraft that's running. Now, I get it. Who doesn't like to get up close and personal and watch a warbird startup? I mean, imagine 2,000 horsepower, 1,500 horsepower. Even an SNJ-5 like the one behind me is kicking out 600. And when these aircraft, if they've been sitting on that turf and on that soft surface overnight, them tires are sunk down a little. It's going to take a few of them horsepower to get that aircraft up and actually moving and starting to taxi. You need to be mindful that when these aircraft power up, there is a windstorm of sand, dust, and grit blowing behind that airplane. You need to be smart. You need to anticipate. You need to turn your head. You need to hold your hat. You need to cover your kids' eyes and spin them around so they don't get their face sandblasted either. And it wouldn't hurt if you gave the guy next to you a jab in the ribs, because he's sitting there with his eyes, both his eyes, at F1 because he's never seen this before and he's so damn excited. And he's going to spend the rest of the afternoon putting eye drops in his eye and trying to get the dirt out. So warn your neighbor at the same time. Now, I have been looking into the audience and I see some very, very attractive women in the group here today going on this tour. And I got a special warning for you gals. Please pay attention to this. Do not accept rides, airplane rides, from strangers, particularly if they're wearing a Navy uniform. Do not do it, girls. Don't do it. Another attractive amusement that is a very dangerous choice to make is attending one of these evening parties at the Warbirds Volunteer Campground. The security people won't even go in there after dark. So those are a couple of tips right off the bat. Now, mobility. And we've got a lot of you folks that have mobility issues. We want you to enjoy this tour and we want you to enjoy the entire Warbird campground. Warbird compound. Stay out of the campground. I tried telling you that before. Here's the deal. I don't care if you got a wheelchair, a powered chair, maybe you got, like me, you got some crutches, maybe a walker or whatever. We can marshal a headquarters support person at our tram headquarters. They can take those devices at zone 1 where you embark on the tram and relocate them over to zone 12. So they'll be there ready for you when the tram tour disembarks 45 minutes later, and you don't have to worry, how am I going to get from 12 back to 1 to get my stuff? Don't worry. You just herald down a headquarters staffer and they'll make the relocation for you. They will put your device right in the middle of, maybe the membership tent or maybe inside the gift shop for you. So don't worry, we'll take care of it. I got a couple of quickies for you here this afternoon and then I'm going to sign off. Number 1, when you're watching those beautiful bombers and fighters and you're watching the aerial displays, do not look directly into the sun. You'd be surprised people do it, it'll damage your eyes. When you see the marshalers, now these are the guys that are scurrying all over the flight line. They got these gaudy orange vests on. The back might say flight line, volunteer, whatever. If these gentlemen or gentlewomen ask you to do something, they flag you with their batons or point to you, do what they say. They've been doing this 5, 10, 15, 20 years. They're going to keep you from getting hurt. So pay attention. If they give you a directive, follow it. Also, when you see the pyro guys, now these are the guys that do the dynamite. You've seen them out there on a flight line. If you ever, and I don't go for just here at AirVenture, but if you ever see these guys running like the Dickens, try to keep up with them. Something real bad's going to happen from where they just came. Here's another one from legal. This came down from legal. Absolutely no tipping the drivers. It could very easily violate their parole. So keep that in mind. Now, this is a big one for the guys. Double check your credit card limit before your wife goes into the Warbirds gift shop. make sure that sucker's up there at 8, 9, 10 grand so she don't have to stop shopping prematurely. I would like to make a small apology for Von Tripp. He got a little carried away. There ain't no seat belts on these trams, so you're going to have a real hard time putting on a seat belt. Just do the clutch thing. If the tram makes a tight corner, just grab the person next to you and hold on for dear life. You'll be fine. On behalf of Warbirds of America, the EAA, and I tease them incessantly, and we got some great lawyers, don't get me wrong, they've kept us out of a lot of trouble over the years. And on behalf of all the volunteers and everybody and the 5,000 plus people that make this whole thing, the big machine work, thank you, have fun, be aware, and you know what? You wouldn't hurt my feelings if you passed on some of what you learned here today. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to turn over the third and final segment of our Warbirds of America safety briefing video to Mr. Tim Gillian. I've had the pleasure of flying with Tim over the many, many years. We've done a lot of formation work. Tim's flown countless air shows. He's flown a number of the Oshkosh shows for many, many years, probably a decade or more. And I will tell you, he's the ace of the base. This guy, he knows what to do when he's in the air, and he knows what to do when he's on the ground. He's going to convey some of that information and knowledge about how you can be safer and have the proper aircraft etiquette on the ground, on the flight line. Again, Mr. Tim Gillian is going to bring you this third and final segment, and he will cover visitors protocol. And you're listening to a really accomplished fella, as I mentioned, wing qualified, lead qualified, countless air shows, and we got an airplane coming in. What do you know? It is an airport after all. Folks, stand by. Tim will be right with you. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Vic, for that great introduction. Just back for a long flight over these beautiful Wisconsin flies, and I'll tell you folks, it doesn't get any better than this. Welcome to EAA, and most especially Warbirds of America. As Vic mentioned, I've flown all over the country, and there is no place other than Oshkosh where we encourage people to walk right up to the airplane, get as close as they want to get to the airplane to really enjoy the experience. We want you to smell the fuel and smell the oil. But with that comes some responsibility. Many of these airplanes are more than 70 years old. They were never designed to last more than 10 years. Some of them are even have significant portions of them that are made out of fabric. Imagine what a hand in the wrong spot could do. An umbrella, a lawn chair. So that's why we encourage you, when you're around these magnificent machines, be careful. Do not, let me repeat that, do not touch any portion of the airplane at any time. That simple rule will keep you in the good graces of every pilot and owner on the field. With that simple rule, you'll be number one in our book. Only at Oshkosh can you stand literally just feet away from an airplane that's about to start and then taxi. Imagine that. You're standing within feet of 16, maybe 2,000 horsepower. Again, there's some responsibility. Pay attention to the marshalers. They're only trying to keep you safe. They're going to be asking you to stand back, stay away from the prop blast. This is extremely important because you have to understand that in most of these airplanes, there is no forward visibility. The pilot cannot see you if you are standing in front of the airplane. So please, pay attention to the marshalers. Be aware of your surroundings. If you see a pilot in the cockpit, be aware that the plane is likely going to start, and stand back. With that rule, you can stay safe on the grounds in Warbird compound. Most times, the pilot, the crew, the owners, they're happy to sit around and talk about their airplanes. That's why we bring them here. We want to answer your questions. We want to talk about what it's like to fly in an air show. We want to talk about how our airplanes served our country during the various wars that they represent. But sometimes, the pilot is getting ready to go on a flight, or he's briefing with other pilots. If you see that the pilot or a member of the crew is preoccupied, don't disturb them. I don't want you to have an unpleasant experience. Just understand that when the pilot returns from his flight, he'll be more than happy to tell you how cool he was in his last flight and how great his airplane is, how it's the best looking airplane on the field, and it was the most important one during the war. Just be respectful of the pilot's time. Another big rule, not just at Oshkosh, at any air show in the country, no smoking. Period. End of the story. Not pipes, not cigars, not cigarettes, nothing. Keep in mind, again, these airplanes are 70 plus years old. They leak fuel. They leak oil. The gas in these airplanes is 100 octane. It's extremely flammable. Fumes on a hot day can congregate in wheel wells, in bomb bays. A spark, an open flame, could cause a serious disaster. Under no circumstances can you light up any place in Oshkosh. On the grounds of the airport, strictly forbidden. As a matter of fact, that's such an important rule. If you see somebody doing that, you need to tell them to stop or find a staff person in an orange shirt and make them aware of the situation. Very few things on the airport are more important than no smoking. Be careful if you're going to walk underneath one of our large bombers or even one of our fighters. If you're a young person and you're small enough to fit under the wing may have drop tanks for extra fuel. It may have ordnance. It has all kinds of sharp edges like gear doors and different things like that. They're designed to cut you in the head. Do not walk under the airplanes unless you are 100% certain of your environment. And always, if you're going to walk under it, make sure you can do it without touching anything. Don't touch the airplanes. Nothing is more important than not touching a propeller. Let's think about this, folks. Most times that propeller is sitting right at the great angle for you to give it just a little nudge or a little push just to see what it feels like. And I understand that. I wanted to do it too when I was walking around the air show. But did you know that with a very simple electrical malfunction, the slightest push on that prop could cause the engine to start? Imagine the disaster that shows up with 30 people sitting around an airplane and all of a sudden the engine is running. Do not ever touch a propeller, and certainly stay out of the arc. Many cases it's 15 feet. That prop could come around. If you're 15 feet, you could be in that arc. Stay away from a propeller. If you see somebody moving it, tell them to stop or get a staff person. It's a very serious issue. Obeying these very simple rules will make sure that you have the most pleasant and remarkable experience you could possibly have at an air show. Warbirds of America is proud to have you here. We're proud to have all these airplanes here. The owners, the pilots, they bring them here so that they can share their love of aviation with each of you. Obey these simple rules. Have a great time. And if you have a question, ask a pilot. He'll be happy to tell you how smart he is. Thank you. Enjoy your day.